What's up, guys? It is an obviously still very sick Illuminostic. We are going to go deep into a very, very important subject that will make me unpopular with some people, for sure. But before we get started, like I was saying, I'm really sick. And a couple hours ago when I decided to do the stream, I felt a lot better. So I'm going to try to push through, power through, but we may not make it as far as I had hoped, because I'm actually getting quite dizzy and sweating a lot. So we'll see. But, as much as I hate to do any political content anymore, because it always costs me patrons, it costs me subscribers, people always say, why don't you just steer clear of these issues? Because, you alienate people on both sides going after both parties. And why don't you just stick to the plant medicine and the occult stuff? And, and that's that pressure, to not alienate people and to put your income first is a big part of the reason we're in this situation in the first place. People are afraid to be ostracized. They're afraid of a lot of things, so I guess for me, it's just important to speak the truth as I see it, regardless of the consequences. Let me see if I can get rid of this weird. Yeah, okay. So, Project 2025. Lots of people have asked me to weigh in on this, and against my better judgment, I've decided to do it partly because the presidential debate or vice presidential debate just happened, and I didn't watch it, but I saw some clips, and it just really kind of validated a lot of the things that I've been confident are true for quite some time. And so basically, if you follow me, you know that I'm of the opinion that there are not really two parties in the United States. There is a concentrated group, right? We know 1%, less than 1% controls 99% of the wealth, right? So you have a very small group of people with common interests. And for a conspiracy to be plausible, the first thing that must be fulfilled, the first qualification, is that there must not be too many conspirators. And so in this situation, because we have such a small group with common interests, it's actually quite viable that there could be conspiracies. And I think one of the things people overlook is that conspiracies don't have to be overtly discussed even. It can be complicit. Just because their interests are shared, they engage in certain behaviors and activities that create these circumstances. So, I totally understand why people are turned off by conspiracy theorists. I am too. What's going on, Athena? For example, the adrenochrome conspiracy. If you take just a second to do a little bit of research and just apply a little bit of critical thinking to this, right, you realize how dumb it is. There are micrograms in an adult, much less a baby. In case you're not familiar with this, they say that baby's blood is harvested, or the adrenal glands, to get to the adrenochrome, and it preserves the youth of these people. Adrenochrome basically acts like a stress hormone. It would cause anxiety, sweating, delusions, headache, convulsions, panic attacks, and worse, right? So if you took it consistently, you would age rapidly. So it makes no sense. Plus, in order to get enough for a single dose from babies, you would need a truckload of them. And you can order it for $20 a liter from China. If it really did what the conspiracy theorists say it did, every housewife on earth would have some in her sock drawer. And so I don't really mean to diverge from the main topic here. I'm just trying to point out that a lot of these conspiracies like Flat Earth and the adrenochrome, they require so little critical thinking to demolish that it's embarrassing. So then when people are questioning the mainstream narrative, and we have this association with all of these completely brain dead nonsense conspiracy theories, it's that much easier to dismiss us, so please stop with that shit. But to keep on the the subject matter that I put in the title, although it is tempting to go in this anti-conspiracy rant, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, and consider becoming a patron. We are demonetized, so we get no support from Babylon Machine Man. Support us. So at any rate, we have a tiny group of people with common interests, right? And then we have this supposed left and right-wing parties in the United States, right? Liberal and Democrat. And my opinion is that the only thing that differentiates them is the rhetoric. They are completely and totally under the control of the same interests. And if you just, this isn't something I feel is an opinion. You can trace all the money back to a single organization. And it's actually three, but it's really one. It's Merrill Lynch, right? BlackRock. And we're going to get into that because I think I may have figured out how it is that Israel has control over the U.S. and why. Who's really behind that? It's just a theory, but it's pretty compelling. Also, by the way, a little bit later on, I'm going to offer a single sentence solution that is as simple as cut and paste that would solve almost all the problems in the United States. And the fact that it's so simple and obvious, and there's nothing stopping anyone from implementing it, is pretty much proof of everything else that I'm saying, right? So the purpose of these two parties is to have scapegoats in the form of a president and to feed the populist rhetoric that keeps them divided, right? This is why the two sides, the two wings of this bird, are increasingly more and more insane, right? Because this is a wedge issue. These are wedge issues that are driving wedges between people and fomenting dissent. And, they're making you fight each other instead of fighting them. It's misdirection. It's sleight of hand. Quick exchange. The old tricks are rearranged. When the story takes a twist, it folds like a contortionist. Megadeth. Thank you, Dave Mustaine. A great illustration of this is the fact that if you are a person that really sees the truth, in my opinion, what the truth is, you'll notice that the left has half of their platform is correct. The other half is insane. The right, half of it's correct. The other half is insane. That way, if anyone comes along speaking the truth, the whole truth, you're going to piss off people on both sides and no one is going to listen to that person. It has been carefully crafted in order to ensure this above and beyond anything else. And another element of this that people aren't really paying attention to that scares the hell out of me. 2020, maybe earlier, I started talking about how when the two parties start to blesh, when they start taking on attributes of each other, they start being scrambled. That's when we know we're really in trouble, because that is the signal that they're consolidating power into one party, and that party will be more or less the right. And this is where Project 2025 comes in just a moment. Got to stay on track here. Sorry, guys. Like I said, I'm pretty sick, so my brain's a bit muddy. So half bullshit down one aisle, half bullshit down the other aisle. Anyone speaking the truth, ostracized from both sides, alienated. No one's listening to them. And the objective of this is the consolidation of power. So, I'll give you an example, actually, before we move on from that. When I was 20 years old, I was a liberal, for sure. Dreadlocks, Grateful Dead shirt, hemp necklaces, worked at a natural food collective, you know what I mean? All the way hippie. Proud to be a hippie. And one of the things that we hated the right the most for, and this is since I was a child, is that they were against free speech and pro-censorship, right? I have seen on X and other platforms the top Democrat politicians like John Kerry. The other day, John Kerry said, freedom of speech is an impediment to us coming to a collective consensus, right? Freedom of speech is an impediment to discourse and consensus, right? I mean, he almost explicitly said, as long as people are able to speak freely, we cannot control your minds completely, right? And I see all these people on the left cheering and supporting and saying, you know, we got to stop this First Amendment stuff. So really think about that for a second. These are people that just a few years ago, one of their party platform fundamental beliefs was that censorship is evil. And it only took a couple of years to convince these people to abandon values they've held since they were children, most of them, right? Most people get their political beliefs from their parents and their families. That's crazy. That is crazy, and it should scare the hell out of anyone. That it is that easy to get the herd to follow anything based on herd conformity pressure, virtue signaling. I don't really know what it is exactly because I've never been that way. Right? And there are other things that are being done to scramble people's brains and to basically erase their sense of identity, to confuse them. One of those things is that, you know, if you look at the right, there is a lot of hollering about stopping the evil cabal of Jews that are controlling the planet, yet they have them supporting Israel. This is cognitive dissonance. This is extraordinary cognitive dissonance. And then on the left, they have them supporting Palestine, which is great. They do seem like an oppressed people being genocided to me. But if you look at the values of Islam versus the values, the supposed values of the left, you know, anti-gay, anti-women's rights, all of these things, it's deliberate. That's what I'm telling you. This stuff is being integrated into the being of people in order to create cognitive dissonance. And the reason is that when these things are confronted, once they have been integrated, people go into fight or flight, and there's no dialogue possible, and you just have a bunch of raving lunatics without any possibility of resolution to all of this stuff. Let me check in with the chat. You know, another good example of this, well, this is a little bit different, but the way that they're demonizing the left and the kind of narratives that are inciting the right, and rightfully so in a lot of cases, a lot of the things that are being pushed, you know, transgenderism for children and, you know, gun control. These are issues I can understand people, you know, taking up arms about. Tim Waltz actually said, I have made friends with school shooters in the debate. Right? This kind of extreme position is deliberate. It's not sincere. It is deliberate. They're doing it on purpose. There's no way that you just mindlessly say something like that during a vice presidential debate. It is scripted, and it is designed to justify the elimination of the left from the planet, basically, in the United States, right? And there's, you know, plenty more to that. But let's get into Project 2025 a little bit now. Yeah, somebody just mentioned the founders of Flat Earth are scumbags, and I've always been of the opinion that it's a psyop with the intention of associating free-thinking people with idiots. And while we're on the subject, I should mention that one of the big failures, I think, of people that kind of escape the Muggle mind and escape the, you know, left-right dichotomy and think they're thinking for themselves, there are all these snares and traps everywhere in the form of alternative narratives. You should be more suspicious of alternative narratives even than the mainstream narrative, because those are the people that they need to corral and control and divert, you know. So watch out for believing things without sufficient reason. The principle of sufficient reason will never fail you. Okay, so Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation is an ultra right-wing conservative group. I don't know a ton about them. That's enough. That's all I care to know. And I don't know when, maybe 2 years ago, they drafted this thing called Project 2025. And way back in 2020, even before Trump got elected, and you can check this on my channel. Actually, the reason I got demonetized, I think, is that right before the 2020 election, one of my streams jumped up to like 20,000 people, and I started talking about all this stuff, and I was demonetized within a couple of days, and my videos stopped getting views. What's up, Big C? So I noticed the rhetoric that Trump was using was increasingly in alignment or congruent with that which is used to set up dictators and totalitarian regimes. And it wasn't just him, it's the propaganda around him as well. So I predicted that a long time ago, that there's something going on where they're trying to consolidate the power, they're going to demonize the left, they're going to come up with all these crazy narratives like, the stuff I mentioned earlier, this loony stuff the left is wanting to do now. You think people are coming up with this? No, that's being fed to them from the propaganda machine. They're the ones driving this. This is not people sitting around at home thinking, you know what, I think we should start doing sex changes on 5-year-olds or whatever. This is coming from above, and that's the reason for it. So I made that prediction way back then, way before the rhetoric got more and more consistent with that. And also, I would ask you to take note of the fervent belief in Trump, the number of people that think he's a prophet. You know what I mean? That perception was created in the minds of those people on purpose. There's not something about Trump that lends him to this. It's actually the opposite of that. He's gross. He has a long history of, shady behavior. He's been, settled sexual assault cases, some of them with minors 11 times. Pictures with Epstein all over the place, on the flight logs, with P. Diddy everywhere. He is one of them. In fact, I suspect that he's doing this not because he wants to. Why would he want to do this? But because they have him compromised, and he's been blackmailed into doing it. He has to do it, otherwise he wouldn't be doing it, and he's playing a role. So I thought, that's what they're doing. They're going to make him the figurehead. He's not really in charge. It's BlackRock and Vanguard State Street, and it's Israel, maybe Russia and China even. There are lots of hidden players, all contributing some sort of energy to this. But, he wouldn't really be the dictator. He's just a figurehead for this. And then Project 2025 comes along. And it has provisions, basically, I'm not going to get into all of it, just the main indicators of what it's really about, right? Getting rid of the FBI, Department of Education, Department of Health, a bunch of others, and also something like a purge where they would remove all of the opposing party from government positions, right? So the ostensible, effect of this, the thing that, at a glance, this sounds good. Shrink the federal government and get rid of all these shitty agencies. But you're out of your mind if you think they're really just going to create a vacuum and then just leave it that way. The real objective is to get rid of all of these organizations that are not completely under the control of this figurehead's overlords, and then they will replace them with other things that are completely under his control, right? So when I saw that, I realized, okay, the suspicion I had that they're actually setting Trump up to be dictator is, or a faux dictator, is accurate. But then I got thrown a curveball, and that curveball really just verifies all of my suspicions. It doesn't change anything. It just sort of cements this perception. one of the founding trustees of the Heritage Foundation and one of the main authors, the principal authors of Project 2025, just endorsed Kamala Harris. So a couple of weeks ago, before this happened, I said on one of my streams that it doesn't matter whether it's Trump or Harris, the same people are in control above them, and Project 2025 is happening either way. And now here we are, a couple of weeks later, and Heritage Foundation, the Trump was photographed having a meeting with the same guy, I think, that just endorsed Harris. A lot of his campaign rhetoric is reflected exactly in Project 2025. But now they're behind both candidates. They always were, So partly I'm here tonight just to say, haha, I told you so. It couldn't be more obvious, And one of the things I'd planned to do tonight is go into X and look through all of the propaganda and react to it. Kind of hesitant now because I'm realizing that I could accidentally scroll over something that YouTube would delete me over. So that's kind of on the back burner at the moment. But, really, there's no reason to talk about Project 2025 all night. What I just said is enough. That's enough. That's all anyone needs to know. That's it. That's totally sufficient. And the gravity of all this is becoming increasingly clear, right? The other day, Trump basically announced his intention to do like a Kristallnacht, the crystal night that Hitler did, where you have, he said, either an hour or maybe a day to just go and purge the vermin from the United States. This is just getting crazy. And so the Trump assassination, which I think was totally fake, right? Somebody might have actually gotten shot. And when people argue that someone died, so it can't be fake, collateral damage for military strategists and intelligence people, shooting some Trump that's nothing. That's nothing. They dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and killed, 250,000 moms, dogs, babies, cats, dogs, burned shadows onto the sidewalk. You know what I mean? Some of them took months to die from radiation poisoning. You know what I mean? I don't understand how people would say, oh, they wouldn't do that when they've already done things that are infinitely worse and continue to do them all around the world all the time. It is just a dumb argument. So, oh yeah, the Trump thing. So there are a couple of relevant bits. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but the main thing is that the implication that the Secret Service and other constituents, the local police and whatnot, were in on this is absolutely correct. But what people on Trump's side fail to realize is that implies that it goes way higher than that. And it wasn't an attempt on Trump's life. It was a justification for this purge of the other party, making it not only, strategically wise, but necessary in order to, say, protect the president, right? So that's a large part of what I think the motivation for that was. But let's move on. Speaking of the assassination and the fact that the sniper he was in a BlackRock commercial and he had other BlackRock connections. By the way, they said he had 4 overseas bank accounts, right? But he couldn't afford a good scope. Come on, come on, people. BlackRock, and this is just kind of a divergence because, like I said, I'm sick, so I'm going to have to cut this kind of short and just get to my main bullet points. BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard is basically owned by Merrill Lynch. And there's all sorts of, I've looked into the convoluted web of, who the stockholders are, and basically it just vanishes. There's no board even. There's no board. It's completely sketchy and suspicious, right? But Larry Fink, CEO, Zionist, Jewish guy, right? They own 85% of the Standard & Poor 500 already. They're on track to own, I think it's 65% of all of the residential properties in the United States by 2030. Yes, we have retreat scheduled in, well, thank you, in May in Manu, and November I'm available as well, November 15th through December 15th in the Sacred Valley. So the May retreat is almost full. It's going to be 85% returning guests, many of them bringing their families, which is incredible. It's really great to have people that we know, so there are no surprises. But we're super excited about May. At any rate, BlackRock, right? So they're consolidating power. I mean, it shouldn't be legal. Somebody should stop them. But I've been thinking about something for a while. It's obvious that Israel has some sort of, chokehold on United States politicians. RFK Jr., who is a complete puppet, by the way. At first, I thought maybe he was really going rogue because they killed his dad. They killed his uncle. I think somebody else in his family maybe too. So I figured maybe he just didn't care if they killed him because he just, all hell-bent on revenge or whatever, right? But no, he is another puppet, another Zionist puppet. So RFK Jr., Trump, Kamala Harris, Biden, all of them support Israel, and I don't have to tell you guys, everyone knows there's some weird, sketchy relationship between Israel and the United States. But then I thought, how did they do it? People say they have technology, that they've made a lot of money from that and whatever, but it doesn't make sense. What is it, a 60-year-old country that was founded by a bunch of Holocaust survivors? What is really going on? And then I thought about Mecca and the black stone that they all circumambulate and worship and whatnot. And then I thought, well, the Saudis, nobody knows how much they're worth because they're royalty, so no one audits them, right? But we know that some of the individuals pull $1 billion of crude out of the ground a day, so they're trillionaires. So if you're trying to figure out who is behind, this consolidation of power, well, who has the money to do it? Who are the wealthiest people on earth? And yes, there are the Rothschilds and other families that are far more hidden than that. But I think this connection between Islam and BlackRock in Israel is probably meaningful. In fact, one of BlackRock's subsidiaries is Blackstone. So this reference, I believe, to Mecca is, pretty ubiquitous in their stuff. Okay, so there was one other bit to this that I wanted to get to, and I think I'm just too sick and delirious to maintain conceptual continuity tonight. So BlackRock, Zion. Oh, yeah, the solution. And again, this is kind of a huge divergence, but, people have accused me of complaining and not offering any solution. In fact, some person a week or so ago accused me of just being stupid and ignorant, and that the reason that I criticize both parties and say that they're really just one thing is that I'm just too intellectually lazy to understand the nuances of the different parties and all of this kind of stuff. To me, it's like the rhetoric is different. But what is rhetoric? This is just words, Why do you believe, even though you can see on paper that the power is all consolidated in this tiny little group, but you think that the fact that the puppet's rhetoric is different is meaningful for some reason? You know what I mean? And so I wanted to respond to that in a very simple and actionable fashion. And this is ridiculous that it's so simple. And it proves basically that the reason that the education in the United States has fallen from number one in the world when I was in high school to like, I think it's like, it fell to like 33 or something, and now it's back up to like 21 or some, somewhere it shouldn't be, considering that this is supposedly one of the wealthiest, most advanced empires in the history of the planet. If the education has fallen that much, it's because it was deliberately fucking sabotaged, in order to set the stage for the bullshit that we're experiencing right now. Critical thinking, it requires so little to solve all these mysteries right now that they really had to eradicate that from the minds of the populace before they could get away with all this stuff. So, point being, healthcare, United States is way down on the list. Happiness, way down on the list. So, this person that said, why don't you offer a solution? Here's the solution. You can Google 20 happiest countries, and you get a list. And then you can open another window and you Google top countries in education, and you get a list. And then you can Google top countries in healthcare, and you get a list. And then you notice that 7 out of 10, I think it was, have the same systems in place. Copy, paste, apply in the United States. And people argue that, for example, communism works in tiny communities sometimes. There's an island in Lake Titicaca in Peru that is communist. They have no police. They don't even have dogs. They have no crime. They're not hungry. But if you scale communism up, you have problems, right? So people talk about scaling. And that does not apply, because China is one of the countries that is a higher metric than the United States. And the overwhelming majority of them, as I said, have the same systems in place. And here's the thing. What metric should override happiness as the key fundamental metric for a country's greatness and success? Maybe health? Or maybe education? But those things are, going to contribute to happiness. So, that's simple. Tell me it's not. How is it not? How is it not? We have 70% of the top 10 countries, by those three metrics, have the same systems in place for healthcare, education, and, happiness is derivative of those other things. It's not a system, right? And there are little variations, but tell me that that's not the answer. So fuck off, It's not even complicated. There are countries that have already established viable systems. Your proof is your success. They have demonstrated that it works. And in a lot of cases, maybe all of them, I haven't really checked. It's not new. They've had these systems in place for a long time, and things have done nothing but improve. So, like I said, I am quite sick, and that's affecting my brain considerably. So, in the interest of not making a fool of myself, I'm going to check off now. But please do me a favor, hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron because we're demonetized. If you're interested in consultations, you can email me. Guitar lessons even, I do all sorts of things for people. And also we have the November and May events that are amazing. This time went really, really well. People experienced profound transformations. And I have some great stories coming up. I was actually going to do one of them tonight. But I had to check with the client to make sure that I had permission, because kind of a celebrity and associated with a certain fraternity that is hush-hush. And I thought maybe, those details would be enough that it would not make him happy. So I had to clear that first, because I can't tell the story meaningfully without giving those details. But green light on that, and that's going to be a great story. Having to do with the universal mind and whatnot. And then also we went to drink ayahuasca with a Shipibo shaman who was amazing. And, I know some of his family members, and they have a great reputation. But the organizer was the prototypical parasitical narcissist gatekeeper that is destroying ayahuasca and just, so I have this sort of, dualistic tale, good and bad, that, just it's an important thing that we should all be discussing, anyone that's interested in these things. So thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Empress Taitu, I think you're due for another voice call. So hit me up on Patreon and schedule that. And anyone else that has blocks of time, remember it's your responsibility to send me a message and schedule them. And if you do that, I will be happy to talk with you. So good night, everyone. And think about the shit that I said tonight, because especially that last bit, the systems are there, copy, paste, apply. Like, why isn't that happening? Because the current system serves the overlords, not you.